This is a photographic process of a painting I did. I'm an amateur acrylic painting. I also use other water-based colors, I mean media, but I've been using acrylics a lot lately. And I wanted to share this photo progression of a Nocturne um, painting I did. It was a summer this year, 2018, and it's a very nice view. I actually did the sketch when I was walking by. This is in Charlestown Navy Yard, very, very close to the old Boston, old North Boston area. It's about 2 miles only. And this is part of the Freedom Trail. So if you've been around Boston, either as a tourist or you know it, Charlestown is familiar probably to all of you. And this is a view on Pier 6 from Pier 4, which is where you actually take the ferry to the different areas in the Boston Harbor. So this is a photo progression of this painting. The painting is 9 by 12. On a first step, what I did on a toned canvas, and this canvas I chose I had toned it with yellow ochre, very transparent. So it's not white. As you can see on the very left margin of the back of the slide, that's true white. And you can see the light areas is where I have not applied paint yet, is sort of yellowish, transparent yellowish. And so using that canvas, it's cotton canvas, using that canvas, I first did the blocking stage. And in this blocking stage, you define the darks and the large shapes. So, you choose your composition and you define where the lines are going using maybe, it's the same mixture of the dark is ultramarine blue, phthalo green, alizarin crimson, and there's different levels or different proportions of these three colors in combination, and in some cases with a little bit of white. So basically those dark areas are established, making sure that the farthest ones in the very background have more ultramarine blue and white. So, but it's basically the same mixture with different proportions of them. The areas of the sea are not in the same dark. It's basically phthalo blue, ultramarine blue. I'm sorry, phthalo green, ultramarine blue to give that turquoise tone of the sea. And also I did add some areas where you can see some purplish grays with alizarin crimson. So this is basically establish your paint and put the large shapes as you want. And then the very back end and right in the middle is it's an image I actually love watching. It's the old custom house. I think it belongs to the Marriott nowadays, but it's a custom house in Boston, and you can see it from Charlestown very easily. And it's something I feel is a very typical and idiosyncratic for the Boston images. So in the next step, I'm refining that. So the lightest sky areas is right now just a toned canvas, but I wanted to make sure I left it very, very clear white so I don't have to put much more on top. Also, I made a slight mistake because I noticed on the reflections they were actually looking larger, wider on the reflections on the water as they were coming towards me, but it didn't actually look very well. And it's basically because the water was moving a lot, it was flapping. And so some of these reflections, as you can see, are actually moving towards the right as they come closer to you. And that was because of the movement of the water. And the second from the left light, actually one of the lights was broken. So I had painted the two of them, but I had only put the reflection of one. And then I looked better at what I was painting. And this is a very comfortable position because where I'm painting, it's a bench. And I can just sit there with my paints and do a lot of the blocking stage and sketching. So I realized that one of the lights was broken. So in the next step, I did make sure that I corrected that. So local colors and the reflections on the water is just establishing them, and this is sort of the first step of the whole canvas blocked in with paint. So there you go. In the second step, I did get rid of that light that was broken, and I defined a bit better in the back The custom house that you can see now slightly better. Those who know the customs house maybe can identify that's what it is. Um, I liked this building on Pier 3. That's I think it's the building that would be my focal point. And I do like the way that the lights from the windows actually do reflect slightly on the top of the roof. So they make them a little warmer. And I wanted to, define the shapes, put a bit more of the lights that I was seeing. I debated a lot if I should add all of the cars that were parked in front of those buildings, but I decided not to. I wanted to just have a lot of loose edges and not very well defined darks. I did not want to start going on the details of cars in there. There were not that many people in this summer night walking around there. Normally, there's a few people walking around. And again, the atmospheric perspective where the back is lighter tones. So you start adding more titanium white in the back. The lights are basically alizarin crimson and yellow ochre. I may have had a tiny bit of cadmium red, but I think this was basically yellow ochre, alizarin crimson. On the clouds, they were too gray, so I wanted to put a little bit more of a light blue and a little bit more of a light alizarin crimson in the mixture, but wanted to make sure that the area where the sun's setting on the east in the back was clearly the lightest area of it. The reflections in the water do not reflect that yellow. They reflect what's on top of us. You still can use the different tones to define the reflections of the buildings, and I corrected also a bit the reflections of the lights. They were too bright before coming towards us. So basically, defining the clouds with ultramarine phthalo blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and yellow ochre, and also define the customs house tower in the background. I think that I mean, to me that's a very nice feature, although I think the focal point is the other building from the Navy Yard. And the color of the water, I use a lot of the brush strokes. I really like painting water. My way of painting water is maturing. I think it's getting a bit more, I'm feeling more and more comfortable with it. And it depends if it's still waters or if it's not. When it's not still waters and it's moving, I like it to show more the creaminess of it. I think probably with oil paintings, you would get a better image of it, but that I try to imitate a bit more the effect of oils. And in this final stage, I added a warmer color to the path in the foreground. It was just very ill-defined, and I thought it would be nicer if you can actually see the vertical edge, the little ledge, the horizontal planks of the wood planks, and also the choppy waters. There's a lot of layers in these waters, and it's very tempting to try to paint one single area, but you have to jump around so that you have the different slight toned blues, greenish blues in the water in different areas of the painting and less defined in the back. So the reflections and the water in the back, you can see less of the brush strokes and more defined in the front. So I think it's very important not to blend them, but leave them as you put them in there so that it gives more of the impression of the choppy waters.